Hey, welcome to On the Clock, a collaboration between the Pack a Day Podcast and the Draft Fellows. I'm Ange Mertig. That is Kyle Fellows. Together we are the Draft Fellows, and leading up to the draft, we'll be doing a series that covers picks 1 through 32, each team's biggest needs and who they should be considering at that pick. You can check out the video of all 32 episodes on the Draft Fellows channel on YouTube. You can check out the audio version on the Pack a Day Podcast streaming platform. I know words, Kyle, as well as our other content surrounding roster building the NFL draft. But anyways, we are on to pick 17 in the Cincinnati Bengals today.
The Bengals, not a controversial organization at all at the moment when we're recording this. Lots of different ways that the Bengals could go to make their team better this offseason. Seems like they've already made the decision that they think that T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are going to be the cornerstones of this team going forward. Of course, we got the news that they both got those massive extensions done there in Cincinnati. We know that the Bengals are set at wide receiver, or maybe they'll just draft another one really high because they love wide receivers. But it's fine that you pay your stars, but that means that they're going to have to draft really well to fill out the rest of the roster. And since he is not without those holes on the rest of this team, so they could look to bolster the offensive line so that Joe Burrow can get the ball to those highly paid wide receivers. They're going to stick with Orlando Brown and Armarius Mims at the offensive tackle spots. But if they could, I bet they'd like to upgrade both of the guard spots. That might be a tall task, but they can definitely improve the play that they got from Cody Ford and Cordell Volson last year. The Bengals re-signed defensive tackle B.J. Hill to a 3-year deal and brought over T.J. Slayton from the Green Bay Packers. But adding to the defensive line definitely is in play. They could get better there. Cam Taylor-Britt and DJ Turner figured to be the outside corners for this team, but Dax Hill being lost to a torn ACL is a big deal. The Bengals may need to add something to the corner room to kind of fill that out a little bit. And then the safety duo of Geno Stone and Jordan Battle was very underwhelming in 2024. So you could definitely see them addressing safety even early in this draft as well.
Yeah, and taking a look at what they could possibly do in a trade situation, given the Bengals' large number of needs on defense, which he just addressed, I'm sure they'd benefit from a trade down, but there's just not a team, or I'm sorry, the Bengals are not a team that typically moves around the board very much. They stick and pick every year, seemingly. So I don't expect them to do much. I do think that they could try to trade down, but we have talked about this in literally every episode since probably pick 9. Like, who's going to trade up is the answer every time we say this team should trade down, because I think everybody in the teams would love to trade down and accumulate more assets, but there just isn't a player who sticks out for a team to move up, at least not in our perception. So I'm going to throw some players at you, Kyle, and I'm going to start with a weird one.
Okay.
And what about Penn State's tight end Tyler Warren or Michigan's Colston Loveland? The Bengals did bring back Mike Gesicki, but a true difference maker at tight end could make this offense nearly unstoppable. Or what about Ashton Genty? Like, Chase Brown was really good down the stretch, but he doesn't have anywhere near the skill set of Genty. So if the Bengals just want to say, hey, you know what? We're going to take this ridiculous strength of ours and make it even better, and no one's going to be able to stop us, and we'll try to play defense to accent what we have on the offensive side of the ball. There's some options, but more realistically, the Bengals would be looking at maybe one of the guards if LSU's Will Campbell slides, somebody like Texas, Kelvin Banks Jr., Alabama's Tyler Booker, Gray Zabel from North Dakota State, or one of the secondary cornerbacks. You have Maxwell Harrison from Kentucky, Trey Amos from Ole Miss, Darian Porter from Iowa State, or even like Siobhan Revel, Benjamin Morrison, who I like even more than those players, but they're both injured. And we haven't talked much about safety. I mean, you mentioned it briefly, but Georgia's Malachi Starks could be an interesting fit. And like Jordan Battle and Geno Stone, I think are pretty good, but Starks could add a versatile upgrade, allow you to do some flexible things, maybe play some 3 safety looks.
Yeah, so I think the most hilarious outcome that you just kind of outlined would be them just saying, hey, let's add in Colston Loveland. We will let him play detached in the slot and, or add a dynamic running back. That would be awesome as well. Completely ignore the offensive line and just see how this goes. Like the attempt to put up 45 points a game and just pretend like the defense doesn't matter. We're just going to play basically like Big 12 in the NFL.
It
And that
would
would
be fun.
It would be very fun.
Maybe
Maybe
not
not.
the smartest decision, but it
Yeah.
would be fun.
I can't decide honestly if this is like Joe Burrow needs to request a trade because of like the like interesting malpractice, but also like there's nowhere else in the league he's going to go that has the weapons that the Bengals have. So it is maybe the most fun situation just to see play out kind of thing here. The other thing I just to mention here, we're operating with the understanding that Trey Hendrickson has not been traded at the time of this podcast. We're assuming that by all reports, like they're going to try to make this work and write another really large check and keep Trey Hendrickson there in Cincinnati. So if that were to change, obviously that would impact some of their draft needs. We would be talking about edge just a little bit more than we probably are in this episode. But Bengals, man, a really fun conversation in general. I think that they could really look to address the secondary if we're going to talk about who they actually should target in this draft. And with Dax Hill's significant injury and the need at corner in general, I think that this could be a nice landing spot for Texas's Jahdae Barron. His versatility would allow them the flexibility of playing him inside or outside and allow them to get their best defenders on the football field. I also really like this spot for Malachi Starks. You just mentioned him. The Georgia safety is probably one of the safer picks in the whole draft and would give them a leader that could be that consistent presence on defense. But with the way the Bengals have built this team, they need to put up those points that we mentioned. And so I could see them adding to that offensive line. I think that would be smart. I think Alabama guard Tyler Booker is definitely a great fit. You mentioned his name. He can do a lot of that gap power stuff that Cincy has been running, and he's going to be great for your locker room as well. So I like secondary and offensive line for the Bengals here to address in the first round.
Yeah, you kind of stole my thunder here because I had made a note to myself about Colston Loveland being the A+ version of Mike Gesicki, and like I'm sort of obsessed with this idea,
Yeah.
but again, probably not the best interest of keeping Joe Burrow upright.
Yeah.
But you figure this team probably has to go defense, if not with their first round pick very early. And getting a big, physical, super athletic cornerback is always a smart way to go, given the needs you address. So let's talk about somebody like Darian Porter, the cornerback out of Iowa, who is huge, really fast. I think would be a fun fit in this system, and they have a couple of really good slot players. But adding somebody with a really unique skill set to match up against those bigger wide receivers. And we know in the division they're in, that would be a really useful skill set to have on the roster. I think that would improve their secondary, help to improve their defense, and maybe give somebody like Trey Hendrickson a little bit more time to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, really an interesting, just like, I mean, we went through a lot of different scenarios here of like different directions the Bengals could go, kind of saying like, this is maybe what they should do. This is the, I don't want to say smart, but like intuitive direction they could go, but then they could do some really creative things as well. And it could all work. We've seen the NFL figure out ways to win football games in a variety of different directions. Darian Porter is a player that I think will probably ascend boards. I think the closer and closer we get to the NFL draft, he's a player that really didn't break out until late in his college career, but is really fast and pretty long. And I think NFL teams are going to be intrigued by that. So lots of fun things that the Cincinnati Bengals could do that don't cost a lot of money. And we know that that needs to be something that they prioritize now in the situation that they're in. But thanks for joining us for this round of On the Clock. Make sure you like and subscribe to the show and stick with us as we preview all 32 teams in the series leading up to the 2025 NFL Draft. From the draft room to the gridiron, the Draft Fellows have got you covered. Until next time, stay tuned and stay in the game.